Well, at least 6 people have been wounded in Northern Kosovo in clashes between Serb protesters and peacekeepers. NATO-run troops fired tear gas and rubber bullets while attempting to dismantle roadblocks put up by the local Serbs. Let's discuss the developments with political analyst Aleksandar Pavic, now joining us live from Belgrade. Good to see you today. The barricades, as we all know, were set up last year after Kosovan and EU authorities tried to enforce a trade embargo. Is anything being done to resolve this ongoing dispute?
Unfortunately, what is being done is just more of the same from last year. The NATO forces, which are being called peacekeepers, are actually trying to use force to force the Kosovo Serbs to accept living in a independent Kosovo, which they won't accept. And that's the whole root of the problem. Negotiations really are only directed toward that end as far as the Western powers, the EU, the US are concerned. So this is just more of the same. But I do want to say that this was something at the beginning of June which was to be expected, because there's a sort of a power vacuum in Belgrade right now. We've just had parliamentary and presidential elections. The new president has only taken office yesterday. He's sworn his oath of office, but we do not have a functioning government. We only have a technical government. So actually what NATO and the EU and the US are doing are using the power vacuum in Belgrade to try to establish a new reality on the ground in Kosovo.
Well, as you described, this so-called power vacuum in Belgrade, we understand here at RT there's a bit of a transitional political process going on. But if I can just get back to the issue of these so-called peacekeepers, they have a mandate that they can use deadly force on protesters who throw stones or use weapons. Is that justified? And some people might actually just question the whole term peacekeepers. Should they be called peacekeepers?
Well, absolutely. Actually, no. The short answer is no. They've done everything to actually undermine the peace by trying to change the reality on the ground. Yeah, this morning they've actually fired live ammunition at people trying to keep the barricades. And they're trying to keep the barricades to prevent the Kosovo Albanian regime from Pristina to get a hold of the northern part of the territory. So actually this morning we've had wounded civilians, wounded by so-called peacekeepers using live ammunition against barehanded people, unarmed people. So actually peace is the last thing on their mind, unfortunately.
Well, do you think it's fair to say that Belgrade could be seen by some as being between a rock and a hard place? On one hand, it wants to enter the EU and has to build bridges with Kosovo. On the other, it has to protect its population and sovereignty. Which way should it be leaning?
Well, I think the majority of people in Serbia are realizing that the EU is done expanding for a while, and the whole story of EU integration is just being used really as a political tool from Brussels to keep countries that are still outside of the EU at bay. But actually, EU integration is not realistic. The problem is that Serbia is a little bit isolated here because the countries around it are either EU candidates or inside the EU, either NATO candidates or inside NATO, and so the room for maneuver for any Serbian government is very small, and the West realizes that, and they're using that to gain the upper hand on the ground regardless of human cost.
All right. Political analyst Aleksandar Pavic joining us live from Belgrade. Thank you for coming on RT today.
Thank you.